Hey, what's up, everybody? MGM here, and I'm your Huckleberry. It's been a while, but I'm finally able to sit down and get in another genre chat. This is a series where I talk a little bit about a specific genre that can be found in tabletop RPGs, where its influences are from, and some media related to the genre to help inspire. In this video, I get to tell you about one of my all-time favorite genres, and that is the Weird West. I absolutely love this genre in almost any form. Books, TV shows, movies, short form, long form, whatever, you name it. And I fully admit I'm going to want to check it out at least. Now, one of the things I love so much about the genre is the very open nature of it and how it allows for very unique stories to be told. Especially if you're looking for something either completely different from fantasy or something that can blend in with fantasy. This is one of those genres where, coming off of the video where I discussed history a little bit, looking into real post-Civil War history can really aid in telling some amazing stories with that hint of authenticity that a lot of people appreciate. Before I get into all that, though, my typical disclaimer, I'm not paid, bought everything you see here. There it is. For your viewing, though, and completely on topic, I have two Weird West tabletop RPGs on the table here. First, to the left here, is We Deal in Lead from By Odin's Beard RPG, a great Weird West game based off of Cairn with a gun mechanic that I totally love. Second, we have Veilstone, a gothic western by Skellis Press that is based on Shadowdark. I haven't had a chance to play or run this yet, but it looks very promising. They'll both be linked in the description below, and stay tuned for a showcase on both of these games coming in the future. Back to Weird West, though. What is the Weird West? Well, my understanding is that it is a genre centered around the American Old West, roughly a time period of just after the Civil War, around 1865, to just around the turn of the century. This is a contentious time in history, so there's a lot of turmoil already built in to the setting, but then you add in another genre, such as sci-fi, horror, or fantasy and folklore. In fact, that's the two things all Weird West stories really have in common. The American Wild West era, combined with one or more other genres that are in some way more fantastical. Now, given that basic description, where does the genre come from? Well, I do have a video and article in the description below that does a good job of giving you some of the basics here. Yeah, but they're focused on writers and writing novels and things, and I'm giving this as an overview of the entire genre geared towards tabletop RPGs. What we now call the Weird West has its roots in old tall tales and ghost stories told during the late 1800 post-Civil War period. Many of these stories had supernatural elements in them, as they were typically told around campfires or other places people might be close enough to hear a kind of scary story. Many of these tales ended up in what's known as pulp fiction magazines. Side note, pulp fiction magazines, they're a really big influence on original Dungeons & Dragons and the tabletop RPG hobby, and a very big influence on a lot of fantasy writers that came after that period. They started in the 1890s, right around the same time a lot of the stories that Weird West gets its origin from came from as well. They were essentially cheap to make magazines, and the pulp that was used to make the magazines themselves had a rough texture to it, which gave them the pulp fiction magazine name. They were rather inexpensive and often told fantastical tales and became very popular. By the 1920s, they were extremely popular, actually. And it was during that time of popularity of pulp fiction where the Weird West became an established type of story within that medium. Back to the Weird West specifically, it was in the 1970s where I believe most agree the term Weird West was coined, namely by Weird Western Tales by DC Comics. And if you're thinking Jonah Hex here, you're totally right. Now, when we take that point in time in the 1970s and moving forward, the Weird West was an established genre, and there have been many Weird West tales told in multiple media types up until today. Now, guys, keep in mind, I'm definitely glossing over a lot of history here for the sake of brevity. As always, with these dives, I hope to give you enough to get a good idea of the genre, but leave enough for you to search out deeper answers for yourself if you'd like. But if you're someone who really enjoys gunslingers, American Western aesthetics, horror and ghost stories, or just something completely weird and different, this genre might be for you. But now that you know a bit about what the Weird West is, I'm sure you would like some ideas to inspire your games, and that's what I'm here for. So let's start with books. I think when you're speaking of books, especially series, you have to say the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and I totally do. I am a person who loves the Dark Tower series, and I highly recommend it if you haven't read or listened to it yourself. It also is almost the quintessential Weird West book series, so you gotta check that one out. I'll also mention and recommend Six Gun Tarot by R.S. Belcher, and another personal favorite, the Dead Man's Hand Anthology, edited by John Joseph Adams. In fact, if you've never done it before, that might be a great place to start because it's a collection of short stories and gives you a nice range of what you might find in the Weird Western storytelling framework. Now, for television shows, I, myself, being a good Gen Xer, have to mention The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., a great Weird West TV show starring Bruce Campbell that was over way too quickly, which is something that you could say often about shows in the Weird West genre. I can also mention the 2016 TV series, Westworld, and that is different from the 1973 movie of the same name and premise, but the TV series what I'm talking about here. More recently, the television show Wynonna Earp is a great example of a Weird West TV show and a really cool premise, if you ask me. And for one more bonus one, I'll throw in here one of my favorite childhood memories, and that is Brave Star. What another great Weird West show that was over way too soon. Movies are up next though, guys, and Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell from 2015 is a well-received and pretty cool Weird West film, and so is Clint Eastwood's High Plains Drifter, which was from 1973, just like Westworld was. And for a third, or technically fourth suggestion here, the 1995 Johnny Depp film Dead Man is a good example of Weird West flick. Now, I only gave you a few of each in these different types of media. So if you have a favorite Weird West show, movie, or book that I didn't mention here, let us know in the comments below, because more sources of inspiration is always a good thing. Guys, I would be a terrible GM if I didn't highlight a few tabletop RPGs in the genre. Now, of course, there's the two that I've had on the table here the whole time. I highly recommend you check them out. But on top of these, I will mention Deadlands, which I do not have a copy of, but it's been around since about 1996 and is essentially synonymous with the genre. It's quite often mentioned in prime examples of Weird West media, so check it out. For me personally, it's a bit crunchy, but it definitely belongs here on this list. Finally, I will mention another personal favorite, and that's Weird Frontiers by Goodman Games. Yes, the DCC Goodman Games. It's also a bit crunchy for my typical tastes, but it's a great TTRPG, so if DCC is one of the games you really like, I highly recommend checking out Weird Frontiers. But there you have it, guys. What the Weird West is, where it came from, some things to check out for inspiration, and a few games in that genre. I think we checked all the boxes. If you have not checked out this genre before, you really should, even if it's just to harvest some ideas for a different genre. But hey, guys, if you watched this video up to this point, thank you so much for checking me out. I have about 790 subscribers, and I can't tell you how much that blows my mind. Thank you so much for stopping by. I have to take the time to give a big shout out to Buy Odin's Beard RPG for We Deal in Lead. Awesome guys over there and a great game that they put out. And one to Scalus Press for Veilstone here, which I'm very much looking forward to trying out. Both of these games will be linked below. I also want to give a shout out to Luke from DM's Lair. Now, he recently announced on his channel that he was changing directions and leaving longer form videos behind. And I hope I'm describing that correctly, but that's the gist of what I got. Either way, Luke was a big inspiration to me starting my channel. And although I doubt he will ever see this or hear what I say, thank you so much, Luke, for the time that you spent and the things you created. And I hope the best for you and your family moving forward. DMs will be linked down in the descriptions below if you want to check out any of his stuff. All right, folks, one of the beautiful things about the tabletop RPG hobby is the many different genres you can find. There really is almost a game for every taste in today's golden age of tabletop RPGs. I hope to cover as many as I can for you guys, but I'm glad I got to showcase this one because I admit I am biased to the Weird West genre by a lot. But that's okay though. Being biased to a genre, a style, or even a game is okay, as long as you play for fun first. Thanks for watching, everybody.